Cam Reddin, and this is your homecoming on 2SSR FM.
There was a very interesting survey that came out earlier this week that has caught my eye, the Top 100 Graduate Employer Rankings list. This is a survey of 6,000 university students put together by GradAustralia, and it's essentially a hit list. It is a dream list of the top employers that the university students of Australia would love to work for. Now, to find out what's on top, because I'm intrigued, Jeffery Duncan is the Managing Director of GradAustralia. He's good enough to give me some time on the line. Mr. Duncan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I'd love to know, what's on top?
Look, no surprises. Google took out number one for the second year running.
Second year running. They made a movie about it, I think it was last year, all about getting an internship and a job in Google. Is that all it takes now, just a movie with Owen Wilson? You're top of the list.
Look, it certainly helps. It's pretty hard to compete with.
Absolutely. Now, I'd love to know, it's the second year you're doing the survey. What is it about Google that makes us all want to work there?
Look, I think the brand awareness is a big starting point. I mean, they have such an enormous brand that everybody on campus is aware of them. But then I think they do a lot of things really well in terms of their internal culture. And I think that really resonates with students. So, they're known for things like, fostering innovation and nurturing their talent, and what students tell us is that that really is an enormous draw card for them.
As I say, it's the second time that you've run the survey now. What can we learn from the last 12 months? Where is our job market heading? Yeah,
look, I mean, what we're seeing, interestingly, is the rankings following broader industry trends. So, say, for example, mining, oil and gas companies tend to slide back the rankings this year. On the other hand, we're seeing sort of a trend in the innovation tech startup space, and we saw a lot of those companies, the likes of Atlassian, IBM, moving up, which I think is a bit of a sign of the time.
You see some of the resources and some of the big names drop. I mean, we've had Rio Tinto plummet almost 40 places. That was in the top 10 now. It's barely in the top 50. Woodside, another one, from 13th to 53rd. Chevron, Australia, barely inside the top 50 now. And BHP's almost out of the top 10. These, even 12 months ago, were some of the biggest must-haves on the hit list. Is it something they're not doing in their marketing? Are we just not interested in resources anymore? What's behind all that?
Look, I think... resources isn't as sexy as it used to be, but also a lot of them just aren't hiring. They'll be hiring some, but scaled back enormously, and as a result, not spending the time on campus that they would have in previous years. So students either aren't aware of them or don't think of them as a first choice as an employer anymore.
You mentioned the time on campus. An interesting one that I saw was the Royal Military College has dropped down. It's barely inside the top 20 anymore. Do you think we're now looking, when university students graduate, that it's not about furthering the learning process, it's all about getting into a job with a reputable name now, rather than, say, spending those extra couple of years learning or maybe in an internship, but they want a solid job full-time as a permanent income?
Yeah, look, job security is very important. We asked a number of other questions, sort of trying to get inside their head and see what was behind their decision-making process. Job security is big. 93% of students told us that that's very important when selecting an employer. But you do have other things like training and development, friendly colleagues, good leadership styles, sorts of things that give companies the human element that students have said are very important to them when selecting a company.
What did you find about the desire to move and live overseas? It's almost become the Australian dream to get educated here and then live and work overseas. Some of the big Australian companies remain in, say, around the top 20. We've got ANZ, Deloitte Australia's up there as well. But some of the big ones like Microsoft, Google, and those Goldman Sachs and IBM, another one, some of the big international ones are up there. Did you find that was a trend that we all want to ship up and move off overseas now?
Yeah, look, the vast majority of students tell us they would be willing to move overseas. And in fact, many of them see it as a big draw card. The prospect of moving abroad to work, they'll actually be making decisions, and that will be one of the important factors for them.
What can we expect in the next 12 months?
Yeah, look, hard to say being the second year, but I suspect we'll continue to see this innovation tech startup trend going in the same direction, especially given the government's enormous focus on it. That'll be definitely one I'll be watching out for. I'd be surprised if Google was unseated from the top spot.
It's a tough one to beat. It really is.
Yeah, look, it's pretty amazing. They polled about 14% of all the votes. And to put that into perspective, number 2 was Deloitte, and they had about 5%.
Wow. So there you go. It's Google in a landslide.
Yep.
Fantastic. Jeff Duncan, Managing Director of GradAustralia. Really appreciate your time and good luck for the next year.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
It's an interesting chat because when you think about the Australian dream, the American dream is very well published. It's got a movie about it, American Beauty. Great movie, by the way. Give it a watch if you haven't. The Australian dream has never really been well defined. We've got great poetry written about the great southern land, the sweeping plains. But when it comes to actually growing up and going through the education system and then looking to get a job, what are we doing? Do we want to stay pretty local? Do we want to say live, work, retire all in Sydney? Or is the dream now of Australian young people, Australian uni students, to go through the education system here, pick up your tools and ship off to work overseas? I put my hand up. I'd love to live and work overseas. Somewhere like London, New York would be so exciting. But I'd love to know your thoughts. 95451800. And of course, another one is the exchange programs offered by these universities. Internship programs can be fantastic. But a lot of people, what you would see, at least people that I know, people that I've spoken to, the draw of an exchange program is huge. And not for the travel aspect, for the job prospects. A lot of uni students now, from what I've seen and from the people I've talked to, are now looking to finish their university overseas to cement themselves in a foreign job market. Fascinating when you think about it. I'd love to know your thoughts. 95451800. Maybe you're a uni student thinking of packing up and moving overseas. Is that now the Australian dream? Does the Australian dream now consist of shipping off and flying a flag somewhere else on Australia Day?
Cam Reddin, and this is your homecoming on 2SSR FM.